Devastating fires concerning the agricultural sector now. At least R1 billion worth of crops and livestock have been lost to the devastating fires in the past 2 months. That's according to AgriSA. A number of provinces being badly hit: the Northern Cape, Free State, the North West and also Limpopo. Let's bring in the CEO of AgriSA. It's Christo van der Rheede making time for us this afternoon. Christo, good to have you back on eNCA. Just give me a sense then, in real everyday terms, just how devastating this is for the sector.
I think it's a crisis in those areas that are severely affected by these fires. We've seen hundreds and thousands of hectares being destroyed, also livestock, cattle, as well as sheep, and also game. And then infrastructure has also severely been affected. So yes, it's indeed a very traumatic experience for many of the farmers, farm workers, and rural communities that are currently affected by these devastating fires.
Yeah, and I imagine when you look at a situation like this, R1 billion worth of damage, it's never a good time for a farmer to go through that. But then you add in water shortages, our water crisis, the ongoing blackouts in the country as well. So I don't imagine this is going to help the bottom pocket for many farmers when it comes to keeping people employed.
Indeed. Remember, we produce food on the back of debt. In other words, farmers go and borrow money from banks, and now they have to contend with rising input cost, fertilizer cost, electricity cost. I don't even want to mention the impact of load shedding on the entire sector, and then also outbreaks. So we've seen a massive outbreak of avian flu impacting on our, poultry sector. Also, outbreaks of food and mouth on our livestock sector, and now they have contend with fires. So yes, at the end of the day, farming is really a massive risk, a risky undertaking. And these farmers that then have to, at the end of the day, produce food, but with very little support sometimes from local municipalities as well as provincial governments to put necessary risk mitigating strategies in place to prevent this kind of fire outbreaks.
I was about to ask you, how preventable, Christo, was a lot of this based on what you've discovered?
Remember, it's fire season, and we've had a very good rainy season, so your vegetation is quite thick, and a bigger challenge obviously is for the maintenance of the road reserves, so that people are irresponsible. They throw cigarette butts out of their moving cars. It then causes a fire, and that fire spread. And then you've got a very windy season as well. And the other bigger problem, obviously, is the maintenance of many of your farms that are under the custodian of the state. Because they do not put preventative measures in place to ensure that they can contain fires when it breaks out.
Local governments support local municipalities. How should they have assisted in something like this? I suppose this could either be from a view of preventing the fires from happening in the first place, but now that it has taken place, what is the role of a local municipality in a situation like this, Christo?
Local municipalities, provincial governments need to have firefighting teams. Those firefighting teams must be properly trained. And secondly, they need to have helicopters or aeroplanes on standby to extinguish fires. And that's where the army can fulfill a role, and even the private sector. But they need to have a proper risk mitigating strategy in place. And then in addition to that, go and do inspections on the farms. Go and make sure that people have put, fire paths, or they do sort of preventive burns. These are all kinds of things that needs to be done so that you can avoid a full-scale crisis at the end of the day. And that's the role of government. And sadly, though, I think to a large extent in some of these provinces, some of these municipalities are not really, putting the necessary measures into place. That's to the great detriment of the farming sector, but it also puts people's lives at risk.
I want to ask you, Christo, if you don't mind, I see you are in Cape Town. I hope that is the location you're in, because that's what I'm seeing on screen. So this is the damage from the fires. Just talk to me about the flooding that you, if you are in the Cape area, that you would have been seeing and experiencing, and also the farming down there. What is the flooding and the weather we're seeing today? What impact, if any, does that have on farming in the Western Cape?
And this is the irony. In one part of the country, it's raining, and the other part of the country, it's a massive storm, and it's flooding, and it's even, getting worse. So we've seen a number of roads closed down, the N2, N1 in some parts, Solari's Pass. We've seen also huge damage to crops, especially in the Southern Cape. Hopefully, it will not be too devastating. But yes, sadly though, you can do very little when water damage is occurring or a storm is occurring. And I need to compliment the Western Cape government for their responsiveness. I've just heard now they put emergency teams in place, and they've made sure that they continue with basic support services, for example, restoration of electricity and so forth. But we will only be able to count the cost of the damage, during the course of the next few days, because at this point in time, people are just trying to ensure the safety of lives.
As a last question, let me circle back around into the fire issue in the other provinces. So you're saying there needs to be better firefighting response and better training. Christo, who's going to pick up the tab for that? Give me a sense as you answer that. What is the current state of our fire response teams for the farming sector, and what should that look like in an ideal world?
Organized structures such as AgriSA plays a massive role. Throughout our various substructures, the farmer unions, they also have firefighting associations, in other words, local farmers coming together. We also have a fund which we, ask people to fund, and that money goes towards the training of people, buying of equipment, managing those fire fighting associations, and also delivering feed where it's required, especially emergency feed. And we also assist with the reparations of infrastructure like fencing and so forth. So currently, the entire private sector is behind this initiative, and we call on the public and the corporate sector to support our funds so that we can assist our farmers, because without farmers, food security is on risk.
So when we say R1 billion worth of crops and livestock, when do us as consumers begin to feel that in the shelves at our local stores? Because I'm not too sure exactly how the calendars work, but obviously farming is a year or two down before the produce is available. What sort of sectors do you think are most badly damaged, and do you think that the consumers will feel this effect in a couple of years?
No, not necessarily. We've had a very, very good summer grain harvest. Soya, sunflower, maize, grain harvest, I think, and our livestock herd is in top condition. Our biggest challenge, obviously, is the impact that will be felt at local level. At the national level, that's a big concern. We've also seen food inflation tapering down. We've also seen the consumer price index also a downward trend. So that's good news for the consumer out there. The big challenge, obviously, is the massive outbreak of avian flu. That is going to certainly cause a shortage of eggs. And we've also heard from the poultry industry, it might also lead to problems, in terms of poultry supply to the broader public out there. So overall, I think we are in a good position, and that's thankfully to our farmers and the work that they are doing to produce food for the country. But all that we are saying is we need greater involvement and greater empathy, especially from local municipalities, provincial governments and national government, so that we can ensure that people have food on the table at the end of the day.
Yeah, we've got to be getting everyone involved as far as keeping our farmers safe, their livestock safe, and their crops safe as well. We should have much better reaction when it comes to fire management and fire response when it comes to the agricultural sector. Christo van der Rheede, as always, good to have you with us. So appreciate the time. AgriSA CEO joining us this afternoon.